Welcome to Sincerely Me, a podcast about self-discovery and inner work so you can cultivate a deeper relationship to yourself and show up more fully in your work and life. My name is Tallia and I'm honored to be your host. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Today is a really exciting day because I have the wonderful Deborah Ann Quabell here with me. Hello.
Hi, happy to be back. Always you.
Yes. So if you all have been here for a while, you know that Deborah and I had a lovely conversation on the podcast a few months ago about creativity and spirituality. If not, be sure to go and listen to that after this episode. But today, her and I are going to be chatting about a super special offering. I've talked about it a lot on the podcast already, but we wanted to do a little bit of a deep dive into our upcoming Bali retreat because it took us quite some time to get to where we are today in terms of this offering and wanting to create this experience together for you all. So we thought we'd hop on today and unpack a little bit of our intentions for the retreat, share a little bit more about who it's for, what you can expect, and really just like why this came about and what we're hoping this can support you all in your own lives. So we're going to start out by sharing a little bit more about why Deborah and I decided to even come together and work together. And then we'll go more into the nitty-gritty details of the retreat, the themes, the intentions, and what it is that we're going to kind of guide folks throughout the week. October 4th through the 9th are the dates of the retreat. So let's start with why us and how we got here.
Well, I'm going to jump in first because I really believe that all humans, but especially women, have this intuitive radar that, especially those of us that are in more of an entrepreneurial field or building kind of our passionate work in the world. I think meaningful collaboration, partnership, community is always something that is so valuable and uplifting. And I do believe we have this kind of intuitive radar and that things conspire to bring certain connections and relationships into our life. And there was a while that I was quite resistant to being on social media, Instagram in particular. And when I finally kind of gave in to actually the beauty of it all, because it's a super creative and beautiful platform, as well as all of the other side of things. Talia came on to my radar multiple times through various contacts. People were mentioning her or tagging her. And I have held Talia's family super close to my heart. Took her parents on a trip with me to India many years ago. Worked closely with her sister, but Talia hadn't come into a real sacred place in my work or life yet. And so when she kind of came on, I just knew, Talia, that we were meant to work together. It took us a long time to figure out how.
Guys, if we took you through the list of all of our ideas, you would be here for hours.
But it's just a real nod to that kind of intuitive capacity that we have, to listen. And I randomly reached out and sent a message to her saying, I have no idea why I'm reaching out to you. You've come onto my radar. Let's talk about this, because it seems like we have a lot of things in common, but also in complement. And so that's, at least for me, how the kind of story and connection began. And it's only deepened from there.
I could not be more excited that we're doing this. It kind of still feels a little unreal that we're going to Bali together and that this is happening. And it really is amazing. So I just want to say thank you for listening to your intuition and for reaching out and just kind of trusting that it would ultimately get us here.
Absolutely. And I think the people that are going to come with us to Bali are going to have this same calling, this same kind of intuitive pull that this is the right opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as some of you might know, the retreat, we came to call the retreat Honor the Call. So it's about honoring the call and following your spiritual curiosity. So we wanted to explain a little bit more behind the name, behind, again, like the intention. What does it mean to honor the call, and how we're going to help you do that throughout our time together in Bali. For me, when I think about my why behind this retreat, why a retreat, why Bali, why make it about this idea of honoring the call? I think for me, what I've seen, not just in my work with clients as a coach, but in my own life, is this need at some point in our lives to shift our focus from the external world, from what's happening outside of us, to the inner world. I mean, if you're here on the podcast, you know that this is what I love to talk about. And I feel like a lot of us, there's this like ping, or this like someone's knocking at our door, and it's telling us that, there's something meant to be explored, there's something meant to be cultivated within you, but we don't give it the time, we don't give it the space. We might be met with fear or resistance. We don't know how to cultivate it. We're met with a lot of questions and get a little paralyzed and don't know what to do with it, so we kind of just leave it there, and then it gets louder and louder and louder until we have no choice but to look at it. And so, again, that's something that I've personally experienced a lot in my life, but also see a lot of folks experiencing on their own paths. And so for me, this idea of like getting people out of their environments into a new space that's not only like infused with so much beauty and tradition and rich culture, but that also, there's also an element here of like coming together in community and not feeling alone on your journey or on your path, but really, um, feeling supported and held by others who are asking those same questions. And maybe your answers will look different, but at least there can be a dialogue and a conversation, and the intentional space and time is there for you to explore and to feel safe to explore, and to, um, just go deeper into those parts of yourself that otherwise might not have been paid attention to, or might have, taken a couple more years to surface. So for me, I think the idea of like being in a new space and environment in itself is super important. I know for me, I get very stuck in the same routine. I work out of my house. When I'm seeing the same things in my life, they like it, everything I see triggers the same thoughts. So I'm spending every day thinking a lot of the same things, feeling a lot of the same things, doing a lot of the same things. And it's not until you get out of your environment, I've found at least, that you can really start to shift and shake up the stories your mind is telling, and you start to see things differently, and your perceptions change, and, you just start to see things in a new way that I think many of us are looking for, who might otherwise just feel kind of stuck in the sameness of day-to-day life, if that makes sense. So, that's a bit more about kind of why I'm excited about this. There are a million other reasons, but yeah, the change in environment, the need for community, the need for designated intentional space and time, for this work, I think is such a gift that you can give to yourself.
Absolutely. I love everything that you said. And I think to add to that, for me, as somebody that, really lives in spiritual circles, that has been for, the last decade super established in my meditative practice, my spiritual practice, what I have noticed is even within spiritual circles, people that are meditating, people that are doing yoga, people that are really seeking for something more, there's a way in which we can lose touch with what initially brought us to spirituality.
Mm,
We get caught up in the techniques or the philosophies, in the study, in our practices, and that initial pure call that brought us to spirituality, or that brought us to yoga, or that brought us to meditation kind of gets lost or buried or caught up in a lot of other things. And there's something really important about regularly reconnecting to this and finding our own sense of love and relationship and creativity within our spiritual traditions. And so we have these beautiful practices, but what's called me to, offer this retreat is to help people also connect to that first, primal, beautiful call to spirituality. Maybe you're just feeling it. Maybe you felt it 20 years ago, and you need to go back there because it holds the key to a lot of love and relatedness and meaning when it comes to your practice. I know a lot of people that are on a spiritual path, and they say, it used to be meaningful for me, and it's lost its meaning. So how do we bring that back? And one way of doing this is also to visit magical places, places that are imbued with spiritual energy that may be of a different tradition or even confronting to us in some way, that ask us to question, what it is that we value spiritually. Are we truly connected to the practices that we're doing? And if we're not, how do we change our relationship to them, or maybe change practice altogether? Um,
Hmm.
and then use our spirituality not just for our, own development, but it becomes the way in which we're guided to connect to a deeper sense of purpose in our life. And so it's almost as if from this really established call to us to an inner life, we're able to breathe this more easily out into our lives. And that connection is important for me too. And I think we're going to get into that in the retreat, not only how to cultivate a meaningful inner life, but how do we take these fruits and benefits of our inner practice into our relationships in the world, our families, into our work, so that it brings another layer or level of meaning, to this whole realm that we call spirituality, which actually is just kind of life. And so, I mean, I think you can already hear, through these conversations, that it's not a yoga and meditation retreat that we're doing. Of course, it's going to have a lot of yoga and meditation woven through, with a lot of intention in how we teach and how we guide you. But, I think it's really an opportunity for all of us, me and Talia included, to again go back to the theme that holds this together, to honor this call within us and really see where it takes us, because we don't know. I can't tell you what the result of this retreat is going to be for you, and that's the magic of it. It's
Hmm.
going to unfold in its own right, and we're going to listen so carefully through the whole process to allow it to awaken us in the ways that it's meant to. And that's my promise to you.
I love that. I everything you just said. One part that stood out that resonated deeply with me because I've experienced it and still kind of do, which is why I'm also excited to be on this retreat, is that many of us get so stuck in the how and in the techniques, and there's this like story in my mind, at least, that I know many people can also relate to, is this like there's a right way and a wrong way, which is not at all true at all. It's just finding the way that works for you and the way that honors the call within you, and that looks differently for everybody. So this idea of us, you know, coming back to coming back to that call, really listening to it and trusting it, and building practices, doing like aligning action with it in a way that actually fills us up, not in a way that we've been told we should or shouldn't. There's no rule book for spirituality. And I think a lot of us get stuck in, well, what's the way to do it? How do I do it? How many minutes should I sit down? What should I think about? Like we get so caught up in those questions, and to your point, like it takes us away further and further away from what got us there in the first place.
Yeah. And even though this retreat absolutely is kind of moving us away from our everyday life. It's only to give us the tools and ability to move more deeply into our everyday life, realizing that spirituality is not just doing meditation. Spirituality
Mhm.
is a way of life. It's a way of living. And so I think the
Mhm.
themes that we have dedicated each day, which Talia will go over now, really kind of will help unpack how we can invite spiritual experience into kind of our different facets of the psyche, different aspects of our life.
This takes me back to a lot of what I talk about on the podcast, which is the difference between or the shifting from the constant doing to being. And I think for many people, when it comes to spirituality, it's like, well, what can I do to become more spiritual? It's very much focused on the doing and the action and kind of like the external ways that we can show that we're spiritual versus what you just said, which was it's not so much like here are the things to do, it's here's who and how to be. This is a part of the way that I live, the way that I am, who I am. And that's an important distinction to make because I think, again, we're very quick to jump to, I'm a spiritual person. I do yoga. I meditate like that. Here are all the things that I do to show you that I'm spiritual, which might absolutely be, authentic, fully aligned expressions of spirituality, but the intention is what's important and the energy behind it is what's important. And that's, I think, what we're hoping to bring people back to. So, okay, so the different themes for the 5 days that we will be together in Bali. The first is where we're starting, which is honoring the call. So really tuning in and understanding what the call for you looks like, what it sounds like, what it's saying to you, and what it means to honor yourself. So we'll open with that as kind of the theme and topic for the day. And every day, as Deborah mentioned, there will be yoga and meditation woven throughout. There will be, discussions and guided conversations and reflections and time on your own, time outside. Like there's a bit of everything mixed in a way that supports each theme for each day. So that's day one. Day two is listening to the call. So really kind of coming back to, okay, here's what we're hearing, but are you actually listening? And what does it mean to trust the call, to trust the information that's coming up for you, whether it's in, what your body is telling you, what's in your heart, what's in your mind, and how do we just tune out all the noise and start to pay attention? What needs attention, and how are we going to start honoring it and listening to it? So that's day two. Day three is purifying, and this is going to be supported by a beautiful ritual that Deborah can speak a little bit more to in Bali. But this is going to be all about the cleansing, the releasing, the letting go of the things that are no longer true for you, are no longer supporting your inner growth in the way that you deeply desire, and um, yeah, shedding yourself of all of those things that are no longer serving you, serving your highest good. And then the fourth day is all about allowing. And I kind of see this day as like letting yourself, giving yourself permission, receiving what needs to be received, what needs to be felt, what needs to be experienced, and really opening yourself up to that surrendering, to that place of also trust. They all kind of tie in together a bit, but that's how I think of that day of allowing is yeah, giving yourself that permission to initiate change, to um, make the necessary changes that need to be made in your life. And then the last day is all about following your curiosity, following the questions, following your bliss, following those kind of nudges that will also support you in taking what you've learned back home, back into your day to day life, back into your world, so that the practices and the insights don't just stay in Bali, but are really able to be taken back with you to support you in an ongoing way.
Of course, it's going to be so much more embodied experience, working through this psychologically, working through this spiritually, introducing various techniques to you guys. But, those themes are going to be woven through, and that's going to hold this together collectively. And one of the most beautiful things about this retreat so far is, you guys, we have 8 people already signed up, which is super early, and we're thrilled about it. And there's an immense diversity of culture and experience, and it's really, really meaningful and beautiful to me, because it's only going to add to the richness of this experience. We have one person from Taiwan, we have a person from Slovenia, we have 2 from Gibraltar, we have a few coming from the States, one of whom is living in Dubai. Such a mixture of races, of culture, and people, which is so important in yoga retreats, because a lot of the times I haven't seen in the past a whole lot of diversity. And this makes me so happy. Um, and so that is, something I wanted to bring up. And we've really chosen a beautiful location. It can be anything, and it can be curated to also support other needs that you may have. There's an Ayurvedic spa on location. We're going to be doing some traditional Balinese mala threading, dance classes, just to allow ourselves a bit more artistic exploration and expression, because a lot comes alive in that. And the path of art, or the way of art, can be a really beautiful path of spirituality as well. And so there's going to be opportunities for you to have coaching sessions with Talia or healing sessions with me. And so we're kind of opening this up to you guys to also, be with us and yet curate an experience that is what you're needing. And that last point that Talia was saying around following, I have heard from so many people that are interested in this retreat, and I know what it feels like to feel deeply called to something and yet hesitate. I always sign up for things last minute, because for many different reasons, but the call, or that pull, always overtakes everything. And I just want to encourage you guys that as you think about this as an opportunity, to do the work also now, because I remember a wonderful teacher that I was exposed to in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition was talking about when spiritual opportunity presents itself, when there's a real and authentic chance for inner transformation, a lot of obstacles can present themselves and come up to hold you back from that growth or expansion of your being. And so, part of our work is to flow around these obstacles, to come up with plans. Uh, if it's something more on a physical level, plans of saving, plans of, moving things from one place to another to make things work, or, really spend the time and dedication to the inner work. Because if you've already done work to get to Bali, then once we're there, it's only going to be richer and more meaningful. And so it's just something I wanted to mention, because I know there's a lot of buzz and interest around this retreat, and interest is one thing and investment is another. And if your heart is feeling called to invest in yourself, this is a really good year to do it. And I want to invite you to come, not because we're offering a retreat and we want you there. I want to invite you to come because there's something that's calling you to be there. And it's time for you to listen to that. And that's what the whole week is going to be about, is honoring and listening and following and allowing this to guide us. And so I just wanted to bring that in here towards the end of the conversation, because it's, yeah, this whole thing is a journey and a process, and we'd love for you to come with us.
All right, everyone. That was my brief conversation with Deborah. We were really excited to hop on together and dive deeper into our vision for our upcoming Bali retreat. So I hope it inspired something within you to explore this for yourself. To check out all of the additional information, details, logistics, room options, if you want to take a peek at the location, the Shala Bali itself, you will fall in love. So be warned. But all of that's linked in the show notes for you, also on my website at talliadelju.com/Bali retreat. And as always, you can follow along on the gram at Tallia Delju. And to check out more from Deborah, be sure to give her a follow and say hello to her at Modern Day Mysticism. All right, everyone, we'll catch you on the next episode. Sincerely, me.